always record a root, right? That's a great idea, because if you record a root, then you are so much freer. The tonic and the C, the 5 in that chord, and that's great. We can go home, everybody's completely satisfied. Hey, I'm Tina, a guitar player from Berlin, and I want to talk about practicing today. How much should you practice? And I want to start by talking a little bit about my own practice routines and how I have been practicing throughout all my life. I started playing the guitar when I was 16, and I was completely obsessed with playing the guitar immediately, and I still went to school, but I really took like every moment, every second that I could get to play the guitar. And in the beginning that was like mostly getting the fingers on the fretboard and being able to play whatever I wanted to play at that time. That was like Led Zeppelin and a lot of blues, and just the struggle of playing your first, you know, like bar chord. And yes, so that's how it all started. And then later when I went to study jazz guitar, I was like obsessed with the right way to practice plans, and also practicing. So I would say when I have been studying jazz guitar, I would have been maybe practicing 2 to 3 hours a day, but not every day. And then I had all those other things like, you know, rehearsals and classes and guitar lessons. I also have been jamming a lot with other guitar players, and when I stopped studying and started to be a freelancer, in the beginning I had to take other jobs to make a living, but in the rest of the time still have been practicing a lot. And when I moved to Berlin, so that I was already like 40 years old, I got such a kick out of this city and the intense jazz scene here that I started practicing like 5 hours a day. I think this was maybe the most intense time in my life where I have been really like, I had a lot of time. It was before I got my kid, before I was a mother. And my boyfriend, he's a drummer. Check out his channel, he makes really nice videos about drumming. And yes, when I had much time on my hands, we both discussed practice plans on end, and he helped me a lot with practicing, because it hasn't always been easy for me. I have been, first of all, getting quite depressed with practicing at times, and also didn't have like a very good method of practicing. So that Derek, my boyfriend, he helped me a lot, and we just like discussed how to practice, because one thing I can tell you, drummers practice really very differently from guitar players, so very much about tempi. I learned to practice different tempi, a thing that never occurred to me. And yes, but I'm quite the obsessive person. And so I would, you know, for example, write down like, I have a 20-minute slot for whatever, practicing Lydian scale, and then I would be maybe depleted after 17 minutes, and then I would obsess about like, should I write down I have been practicing for 17 minutes, or should I just write down 20 minutes, but that's cheating, right? Or should I write down 20 minutes and then practice the 3 minutes later in the day? And I also had a colleague when I've been studying jazz, he wanted to practice like 6 hours a day, and he just like, if he didn't make it through the day, he started like practicing until late in the night, like 3 o'clock in the night, which I found it totally crazy. But he practiced some really challenging technical stuff, and I couldn't relate at the time. But I have to say, I had like a period of time where I have been practicing like 5 hours a day, and give that a try if you can, because it really starts to feel different, and your fingers start to feel different. But yeah, of course, the most important thing is how you practice, and that's much more important than how much you practice. and if you mindlessly noodle on your fretboard. So I don't even mean that you don't know what you're doing in like a theoretical sense. I mean like you're not connecting to the guitar, and you may be watching TV while you're doing your finger exercises, then I guess your finger's going to improve sort of, right? But just always be sure that you know what your intention is when you're practicing. And my intention always has been to make music and to play with other people. And I always have been lucky to have people around me that I could play in duos, and I have been doing that always. And I think that that's the best ways of practicing, is that if the playing informs the practicing and the practice informs the playing. So sort of if you're playing in a band or with somebody and you can't play a song, or you only know one voicing for one chord shape, right? Then you could go home and practice finding other chord shapes, right? Or whatever it is. And also if you're practicing a tune, right, and then you go into the practice session, you might have some fresh ideas. So in the last years, for me, mostly it's like revisiting tunes and finding fresh angles, new angles, so that I wouldn't have to sort of use the same neurological connections in my brain, you know, because if you're improvising, or if you're playing, that's not the time where you're practicing. So, but then the stuff comes out that's always there, and that can be frustrating. And if you go to the practice room, then you can look at where's the problem, right? And find new ways, just like playing lines in a very small, in a very slow tempo, and finding new ways of navigating a chord progression. And that's not possible mostly when you're improvising, right? In the heat of the moment, the stuff comes out that you always play, and then you have to sort of dissect it in the practice room. And one thing that I realized over all those years of practicing is that I'm coming back to stuff again and again. I have that very old Chopin book, and so one Chopin book is this one, I'm sure you know it, the chord solos, and I have another one like his school where he's talking about chords and everything. But yes, I come back to the stuff, and it's like a very big cycle, and it's like a process. So the practicing becomes like an art form too, right? And the art of understanding yourself, right? And understanding even sometimes what's the problem, because sometimes we judge too fast and think that we are the problem, like can't we do it? But maybe sometimes it's just like a detail, right? It can be a form, it can be a tempo, and it's very much about understanding where you're having a problem. So I think the most important thing is that you go out and have a real live check. That can be a teacher, that can be a concert, but you know, there has to be this other side of the practice routine, so that you don't get like very lonely in your practice room. Because I think we all tell ourselves that when we can do this or that, or if we have been practicing like for 3 weeks straight, or if we have been revising all the standards we learned, or whatever it is, then we're going to go out on a session or play, or then we're going to call that friend and meet up for a jam session. I can only urge you not to think like this. It's a sort of perfectionism that leads nowhere, and I'm totally guilty of it. Still, I'm totally guilty of it, right? But in the end, you just have to go out and do it. And I think sometimes with YouTube and social media, we have those guitar players who can play like crazy stuff, but sometimes I really doubt if they survive in the wilderness of the jazz scene. So that's, for me, the last thing to check on is always, can I, play that on a stage? Can I interact with people? That's important. And I have a feeling that a lot of, especially guitarists, I don't know, you know, they practice like forever on their own, and then they wait and wait, and they never make music, and they build sort of their own system. But when you are playing with somebody else, they're going to be like very different problems. Like, can you keep a form, and also can you listen while you're playing, and can you interact? And that's something that you need to learn as well. So now that I'm wise and old, right, what do? I really like to only practice like 1 or 2 topics, and then I really like to go deep with one topic. And I really like to understand what I'm doing. I want to give you some chords from a Chopin chord melody solo on Days of Wine and Roses, and it's the last 2 bars. I don't know when that started, but I'm always starting with the end. I don't know why. And I just want to explain a little bit why it is also so important that you learn some jazz theory, and it's complex, right? And there's no shortcut. It's really complex. It's all about the details, and yes, it's maybe a long route, but I always think, you know, like what you know forever, like, so give it a chance to understand it, and then you can, you know, if you understand it, then you can use it, and then you can do something with it. So let's have a look at those bars. So that's the tune Days of Wine and Roses, right? It's in F major, and before he's playing those last chords, which is like a very cool outro, he's playing something like this. Which is like a C7, right? 9, 13, going to an F6 chord. And then he's starting this thing here, and so I know he's ending here on the tonic. We are in F, it's a 5-1, it's sort of like the tune is over now, but then let's have a little great ending that we all can use for everything else. So what's happening here, right? So he's playing these chords. So maybe let's start with those chords. If you have a look, E flat minor, it's a 2-5-1 to D flat major 7. And so if you're having a look at all those chords in F major, then you maybe know the trick that you can just take any minor 7 chord and lower the root by a half note. Still belong to the key, sort of, right? We're only changing one note, G minor to G flat, A minor to A flat, and D minor to D flat. So we have sort of like 3 key centers in F major that we also can use and that are close to F major, and we can call them like flat 2, flat 3, and flat 6, right? And this is just like a 2-5-1 to a flat 6 chord, right? And I already find that very great. So I would think like, okay, if I would be in C major, what's the flat 6 chord? It's A flat major. So, and then I would maybe start to look for chords that I could like play there that sound great. I don't know. Always listening to the top note, right? Or maybe let's start with an inversion of the C major. I love this chord, and then maybe and then let's go back to Chopin's line. Going to the flat 6, then he has this like dominant 7th chord, which is in the key of D flat. It would be the 4 blues subdominant chord, right? And then so what's that? That's a G minor 7. And then he has this voicing here. If you play it on other strings, it's like. And that's so cool because it's like a G minor with a flat 13. And that's just like, I got that idea. Now we are talking. So because when I'm playing something, I'm getting all those ideas. So the idea is I play those chords that we just had, and then I just play a 13. So F major, change the C to the D. Just some very cool new voicings, and so this chord you could also think about it as like an add 9 voicing, right? So it would be like an E flat major chord with an F, that would be the 9, and then the 3 in the bass, right? So an E flat add 9 with G in the bass. So maybe, I don't know. But for me here it's like, you know, so if I would see that chord normally, I would think like, right, it could be like a tonic sound, or what the hell should I do with it? But we are still in F major. And I think he's just using it as a 2 chord. 5. So it's sort of a 2-5 going to F major, right? And then everybody would expect maybe like, but so this is an F tonic, right? We're going back to the tonic, and the C is the 5 in that chord, and that's great. We can go home, everybody's completely satisfied, you know, like this. Sorry, can't play that chord. But that's not what's happening, right? He is playing this B7 13 flat 9 instead. So we can think he leaves the top note and creates another illusion below. And then he ends here. I love that. So it's like really a B7 going to a B flat 7. So if you want to, you could think it's like a minor tonic chord, because the 2 of the B flat 7 is F minor, and so it creates the illusion maybe that the tune that has been in F major ends all of a sudden in F minor. A trick that really often happens, right, in a lot of standards, that the major tonic morphs into a minor tonic, or the other way around, think alone together. So what are we going to do with this new knowledge, right? So we can think, if you're playing a 2-5-1, we're just not going to end it on the 1, but we're going to play those 2 chords. But then we have to understand how the hell can we use that, or can we think about it? So if we have G minor, C7, going to F, but we don't do that, we can see that he's playing sort of a bass movement here, right? So it's, so maybe that helps. So let's play a 2-5-1 in C major, going to C major with a G as a top note, and then playing the bass note goes lower. maybe let's record a root, right? That's a great idea, because if you record a root, then you are so much freer. So maybe let's record a root so that we can use some other voicings. I sometimes hate it that, you know, if you're playing in a duo situation, you're really like confined to certain voicings because you sort of have to have your root somewhere. And yes, if you just record your roots on a looper, just, you know, to simulate a situation where you would be playing with a bass player, then you have so much more freedom. So I'm going to record a D and a G, like 2-5, and then chromatically F sharp, F, because that's what's happening here, right? So let's do that. So let's try to play something. So yeah, that's already much more fun if you have a bass line, right? So yes, and then of course, if you have any standard tune that you would like to play, maybe you want to play an outro, you just can like sort of, you know, just copy and paste it in the beginning, and then you're going to see after a while that it's going to take on its own life. So it's also why I really like to learn stuff by heart and practice it in different keys, because the chances that it's coming out is really much bigger. So let's pick a tune. Let's say How Deep is the Ocean? Okay, and then we come into the end. And we end it like this, and then we think about Chopin, and I have forgotten everything. Okay, first of all, he's playing that triad thing that I forgot to discuss. Yes, he's playing like a plain major triad on this E flat 6. Oh man, I like it. Sorry, I can't play it, but I like it. Maybe play it up here. And this note is the 9 of the 2 chord going to the key that's on the flat 6 chord. So we are in E flat. What's the flat 6 chord? C flat major. What's the 2 chord? Fucking hell. It's of course D flat minor. So we can play it the same way. So let's hear it one more time. And you know, the really cool stuff is that you can also, of course, try to play that in lines. So, right, you could play like arpeggio lines, or arpeggios of those chords, and don't forget that much of the hip stuff, I think that's such a misconception, is not the hip scales, but it's that people think about other chords than that they are written on the page, right? Because that's what we're doing there too. We're doing our sort of completely own stuff at the ending, right? Because there's a lot of space to do that, but you can do stuff like this in a chorus of a solo as well. So it's all like little mechanics that make it sound cool. So let's try to do that with arpeggios. I wish I know the chords. So I just play some simple chords so I get it in my mind. So I end on E flat, right? And then flat 6, right? Oh god. Oh yeah. So I have a 2-5-2, B major, and the 4 chord, subdominant, blues subdominant. And then I have a 2-5 going to E flat, I can do that. But well, with an altered sound, and then I have an A flat. So just take it out. Okay. I don't know. So that's just a way how you can use it right. Just took a very small snippet and try to understand it, and then just fool around with it and find some lines and have some fun. And always look for fresh ideas. Don't play always the same stuff. And I'll see you next week. Bye.